This is the Film Symbologist. Welcome to the channel, which is dedicated to analyzing the meaning of some of my favorite films. This video will discuss Prometheus, the 2012 science fiction film directed by Ridley Scott. Specifically, we'll delve into the timeline of the story, hitting on major plot points and determining when they take place on the timeline and how they relate to one another. At a minimum, the story covers tens of thousands of years of history, and perhaps even hundreds of thousands of years or billions of years, depending on your interpretation of the film's opening scene. I'm making this video in July of 2024, a few weeks from the theatrical release of Fetty Wap's Alien Romulus. This video is also part of an ongoing series that will analyze various aspects of Ridley Scott's film, including its plot, setting, mythology, story, and of course, its symbolism.
What's the symbology there?
Symbology? I'm sure the word you were looking for was symbolism. What is the symbolism there? Let me explain it to you.
In a previous video, I discussed whether the engineers changed their minds about humanity, or if there are two factions of engineers with differing views on humanity. If you haven't seen that video, I suggest checking it out on my channel. This video will take a closer look at the story's timeline and about what may be inferred about Prometheus's meaning by looking at the date of various events discussed in the film. One piece of evidence in favor of there being two factions of engineers that I find particularly compelling has to do with the artifacts from ancient human civilizations that Shaw and Holloway discover. These artifacts all depict similar scenes of humans worshipping giant humanoids who are pointing towards a star system that is located too far from Earth to have been detected by these early human civilizations. Shaw and Holloway are two scientists who have been researching and studying humanity's origins. Holloway seems motivated by a desire for answers about humanity's purpose, while Shaw appears driven by a thirst for knowledge. The two scientists' discoveries are apparently compelling enough to convince Peter Whalen, an aging billionaire, inventor, and CEO and founder of Whalen Corporation, to finance a voyage across the galaxy to the star system depicted in the ancient artifacts. When the crew of the Prometheus, the Whalen Corporation's spaceship named after the Titan in Greek mythology, arrives at the star system after a several years-long voyage, Holloway presents an overview of his and Shaw's research. In that presentation, Holloway shows artifacts from the Isle of Skye, Sumeria, Egypt, Hittite Empire, Babylon, Mayan civilization, and Hawaii. The Isle of Skye artifact is dated to 35,000 BC, the Sumerian to 3500 BC, the Egyptian to 2500 BC, the Hittite to 1700 BC, the Babylonian to 1500 BC, the Mayan to 600 AD, and the Hawaiian to almost 700 AD. The crew of the Prometheus ship arrive on LV-223 in the year 2093. At one point, the crew calculates through carbon dating that the engineers on LV-223 died approximately 2,000 years prior, which would date the cataclysmic incident on LV-223 to the 1st century AD, Earth time. Is it safe to assume that each artifact accurately depicts events those cultures directly experienced? For the sake of argument, let's assume that the artifacts do depict events those ancient human civilizations actually experienced and recorded. That means the engineers on LV-223, who were immobilized sometime in the 1st century AD, could potentially be the beings who are depicted in the artifacts dated prior to the 1st century AD, but couldn't possibly be the beings depicted by the Mayans and Hawaiians in the 7th century AD. If those artifacts don't depict the LV-223 engineers, then it could be reasoned that another faction of engineers is depicted. Perhaps the engineer in the opening scene at the waterfall represents this other faction. The earliest artifact from the Isle of Skye dates to around 35,000 BC. And the last scene of the film occurs in the year 2094. At a minimum, about 37 millennia of history is mentioned in the film. The last major plot point that hasn't been discussed is when the opening scene with the engineer at the waterfall occurs. Some people believe that this scene depicts an engineer seeding all life on Earth billions of years ago. Others speculate the engineers creating human life on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, and still others argue that this scene could occur anywhere and at any time. While each of these opinions is perfectly valid and defensible, I choose to believe that everything the audience is shown in the film occurs within a roughly 37 millennia timeline, including the opening scene at the waterfall. In my opinion, a much richer understanding of the film's story is achieved by placing everything within that time frame. To me, the meaning of the film becomes much less comprehensible and much less meaningful if the opening scene occurs on Earth or depicts the seeding of life. If the artifacts are star maps and invitations to LV-223, then why are the Mayan and Hawaiian civilizations being invited to LV-223 in the 7th century AD, 6 centuries after the cataclysmic incident wiped out the engineers on LV-223? That doesn't make any sense. A more likely explanation is that the artifacts depict a group of beneficent engineers forbidding mankind from following in the footsteps of the LV-223 engineers. It may be more accurate to perceive the so-called star maps as warnings about the consequences of rebellion instead. In future videos, I'd like to explore other aspects of Prometheus, including discussions of the film's mythology, the character of David, my own journey of discovery about the story, and other topics that may be of interest. Other films in the Alien franchise likely won't be discussed much, but I am curious to see if Alien Romulus will connect at all to Prometheus. If you enjoy this content and would like to see more, please comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. The Film Symbologist thanks you for watching.